I want to start with something, Tom, that you actually sent over to me, and I I love I love Pete Thamel. Pete's a great guy, but he's sneaky. Okay, I'm gonna call him Sneaky Pete today. Okay, because he's gonna throw you off. He's he's gonna drip out some like some notable Vince Morrow movement. He's gonna give you the insight that you need into the Claudia Wilkin decision. I mean, he might even lull you to sleep. Trying to think about movement and some FBS FCS movement. But then he's going to drop in everyone's favorite. Okay, it's conference realignment. Ho ho! We got conference realignment, and Sticky Pete. I mean, he keeps it real. He is not just a power conference guy. He's not power conference Pete. No. He goes through all the different levels, and what he was able to offer up over on ESPN.com is a little bit of realignment buzz with some potential dominoes. So a couple of levels to this, Tom. We've got the Pac-12, which I think is going to be a nice refresher. We've got what might come next. And then, of course, at the American Athletic Conference in the Sun Belt. But I wanted to start with just a general refresher because some comments in the tailgate have offered, what exactly is the deal with the Pac-12? Because some of those movements happened during the football season, made it very tough to kind of log what's going on. So the Pac-12 is going to have one more year as the Pac-2, Oregon State, Washington State for the 2025 season. But then in 2026, we will see Fresno State, San Diego State, Boise State, Colorado State, and Utah State and Gonzaga join the Pac-12. Now that is, for my money, a pretty good collection. You just had those two. You looked at the landscape. Bringing in some of those powers from the Mountain West does beef up the Pac-12 strength in a major way. But they are not yet at 8 football playing members, which is the threshold they need for 2026. They have failed to add UNLV. They have failed to add Air Force, who both opted to stay in the Mountain West. Tulane did not bite on initial conversations. And Memphis, looking at the Pac-12's finances and what it would cost to get there versus what they are making in the American Athletic Conference, said no, which brings us to the Bobcats and to some stealth tweets and beavers on the San Marcos. And Tom, does Texas State to the Pac-12 get we've got a lot of friends with some Texas State connections. Does that get the motor going a little bit?
I think it'd be a good ad for the league as it's being currently constructed in that, they desperately need an 8 school. So, like, if you're Texas State, you certainly have some leverage on that because the Pac-12 needs you. But I also think that if you just look at the program in general, the kind of schools that the Pac-12 can go after and realistically get, considering like Tulane and Memphis have already kind of said no, like makes the most sense because it's in Texas, so that gets you into the state, gives you access to some, just being able to play there. It helps with recruiting. It is a large school. I mean, it's got 40,000 students. It's getting larger, and they care about football. So, like, for all that kind of stuff, it makes plenty of sense for the Pac-12 to bring them in. I don't know. I mean, from a travel perspective, if you're Texas State, obviously, I think the Sun Belt is better. But it's not like everybody in the Sun Belt is that close to Texas State either. Like, the east side of that conference is still pretty much a trek to the other coast of the country. So I don't know if it changes it too much. So I think it makes a lot of sense for Texas State. And I think it would give it a pretty good, I think it would be a solid G5 conference at that point. Like, you look at the schools that they have added from the Mountain West, they've taken some of the better schools from that league. You get Texas State, who has the potential to be a pretty damn decent G5 team in the long run. I think you've got yourself a fun little league, depending on how the college football playoff format in the future shakes out as far as bids for group of 5 spots.
When you're thinking about what this Pac-12 would look like, and because this came to mind for me, let's put the Texas State piece of this aside, and I'll have a little bit more on the timeline of that. When you have Washington State, Oregon State, but Boise, Fresno, San Diego State, Colorado State, Utah State, now under the leadership of Bronco Mendenhall. I mean, if I gave you Pac-12 or AAC.
I'm still leaning AAC because
it's top.
Yeah, because of like the Memphis and the Tulanes. I think that they're stronger. I think especially like Memphis, because Memphis has the backing of FedEx. You know what I mean? So it's like that gives them an edge over, I think, of a lot of programs. And I think there's a reason Memphis is kind of holding out for a Power Four spot. Like Memphis, I think if it moves to a new conference, probably wants it to be the ACC or the Big 12. It doesn't want it to be the Pac-12 or any of the other G5 leagues. So I think there's a reason for that. So I do think the American is better at the top, but I think once you get past that top level of the American, I would argue that the new Pac-12 would be stronger at the bottom because there's a lot of teams at the bottom of the American that are just kind of, okay, cool, you're there. Like your Conference USA teams for the most part.
Well, and some unique, hard to compare ones like Army Navy, which are now full football members of the American Athletic Conference, and you're always going to expect them to go out there, field competitive teams, especially under their current leadership at both of those academies. And so I guess I lean with you, but man, that's asking the top of the conference to carry a lot of weight right there, just because those other programs that the Pac-12 has added are the ones that we've looked at for 9-win seasons, 10-win seasons, and they change over coaches, and we still see those schools competing for conference titles, competing for big time bowl games. So Texas State, I don't think changes that math that much, but I at least thought that was interesting in terms of trying to reassess what the Pac-12 is going to look like, because it's next year we are going to see the Pac-12 look very different.
I think the best way to look at the Pac-12 as it'll be constructed in the future, if it adds Texas State, is like who's the duck? Like who's the program you look at and be like, oh, that's going to be that's going to be the team in last place every year. There isn't one. I think it'd be a pretty fun league. Whereas when you look at the American, you can find some teams and they're like, yeah, they're going to be at the bottom.
Yeah. I hate to say this. Is it Oregon State?
It might be.
Yeah. The team that actually is there, the team that is holding the open bar media days. Yeah. We'll see. We'll see. A long way to go on that. For the timeline, as I mentioned, on July 1, Texas State buyout from the Sun Belt Conference jumps from $5 million to $10 million. Texas State, according to reporting from Pete Thamel and others, has turned down a Mountain West invitation already. So lots of buzz there that Texas State is kind of the next piece that we could see, at least in terms of these conference realignment dominoes.
The other interesting part of this story to me, going back to Memphis, was Pete wrote that there was consideration. Like Memphis did not want to join the Pac-12 as a full member, but there's consideration that they would join football only.
I know.
And then move the rest of their sports programs to the Big East, which would mean basketball, everything else. So that way it helps with travel for all your lower revenue sports and basketball, and then you could do the traveling for football. I think that could be interesting. I just wonder if you're Memphis, and maybe we should get Gary on here because he'll know better than us. Is football or basketball more important to you?
I think it's basketball.
So do I. But
we're talking about the Metro, like their old days of like Metro Conference, Conference USA. Like that's a basketball, a basketball forward history, in my opinion.
So if I'm a Memphis fan, my concern with this idea is that if I go to the Big East for basketball, but I'm in the Pac-12 for football with revenue sharing, I'm the only Big East basketball team who's putting money into a football program. And I know you've got FedEx backing, and maybe that helps, alleviate some of those issues. But while Villanova's throwing, 15 million at its basketball team, I'm throwing 16 million at my football team, and I've only got 4 million for basketball. I feel like that could put them at a disadvantage in that league.
I was thinking, so Big East, I believe, subject to change or subject to me being wrong, I believe the Big East is like a $7 million media rights payout to the schools, and so would that 7 plus
whatever they get for
football from the Pac-12, where does that stack up? Memphis made $11 million as a full member of the American Athletic Conference last year. So I don't know if even that would end up beating where they are right now, which is just being one of the powerhouses of that conference in both revenue sports. The other Memphis piece in the report was that they are really set on trying to make a power conference.
Yep.
I believe the phrase in the writing was get to the other side of the river. that's that's probably where you're also thinking in the back of your mind about the what really might happen in terms of teams that like what really might happen in the ACC.
Yeah.
Would you be at the front of that line, and would you then would you jeopardize any potential ACC movement by trying to create this hybrid Big East Pac-12 type lifestyle? Should should be something to keep an eye on. Is Memphis in your eyes the sort of the biggest chip that's out there that's not currently aligned with the power conference?
I definitely don't think it's lower than top 3. I mean, Notre Dame is not aligned with the power conference, Chip. So
No, they are. They're in the NDC, Notre Dame
yeah, okay.
Conference.
So if we exclude Notre Dame from the list, I still think that, I mean, there are so many different factors that would go into it, but I definitely think they're top 3. I mean, as far as just program buy-in, as far as trying to, spend money and also having money to spend.
Last piece of the dominoes here would be what happens in the Sun Belt. And you know how the food chain goes, Tom?
Mm-hmm.
When they get picked, when the AAC or
we have promotion relegation in college football.
Yeah, when the AAC or the Sun
realignment.
Belt get picked off,
Yeah.
then they go to CUSA, and when CUSA gets picked off, they go to FCS.
CUSA is a G5 feeder league, pretty much.
Like, and the schools that were mentioned are the only schools that are left from our old CUSA.
Mm-hmm.
Louisiana Tech and Western Kentucky are some of the schools that were left behind the last time that when the American Athletic Conference came and hoovered up a bunch of CUSA teams. Louisiana Tech and Western Kentucky, the first ones mentioned as Sun Belt leaders, might be working to try to figure out who would be the replacement for Texas State. And then CUSA's got its work done just in case it needs to replace teams like Louisiana Tech and Western Kentucky, Tarleton State.
Yep. Yeah, it's all ready to go. But I do think, like Pete wrote, Louisiana Tech would likely be the favorite just because of the way the Sun Belt does things, where they want regional rivalries, and Louisiana Tech would fit right into the West, and then you've already got ULM, Louisiana,
Even
schools.
Southern Miss at that
even
point.
Southern Miss, yeah. So it's just, I think Louisiana Tech would probably be the replacement, and it does make sense. Like, say what you want about the Sun Belt, I do think it's a good league. I've argued that things have changed a lot as far as the football landscape and the way the sport works. So I used to argue that would be the best G5 league in a few years. I don't think that's going to be the case anymore, just because of the way the money has changed things.
Mm-hmm.
But just as far as being a good league, if you're a fan, or just to watch, even if you're not a fan of one of the schools, they actually seem to approach realignment from the perspective that at least I would kind of hope college football typically did. Instead of just chasing the dollars, they're trying to chase like rivalries and regionality and all that kind of stuff.
They are not dealing with programs that they are not dealing with programs that are trying to put a TV ratings formula into your payouts.
Correct. They want schools that care about the sports and will care about playing each other.
Like, they still care about selling season tickets.
Mm-hmm.
They still care about trying to create those environments. I've got my little window into the modern Sun Belt football through Boone, North Carolina. Like, they want the Rock to be fun. And so that's why they try to make sure that you still have those games against Georgia Southern. You still have those games, James Madison now becoming a little bit more of a regular rivalry. So yeah, old SoCon teams, old FCS playoff rivalries, all of that is still being held together, even if it's not the biggest metro areas, even if they're not the biggest TV draws. So I'm with you right there. I really, really enjoy Sun Belt football, but to be like a cold shower with this, we print out the Sun Belt all conference team every single offseason, and every single one of those players gets plucked.
Yeah, I know. It's a good football league.
It's a good, yeah. Players.
Same happens to the MAC. Same thing happens.
Players come in overlooked, under recruited. They've got good coaches. They play well, and they are gone. So
yes, like I love the MAC, but the Sun Belt is kind of, for me, just kind of creeping up past the MAC as far as my enjoyment for watching factor.
Absolutely. All right.